What's going on, everyone? So the Lakers and the Raptors have been linked in a potential trade, obviously for Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr., potentially Russell Westbrook to the Toronto Raptors for Gary Trent Jr., Fred VanVleet, and then you throw in a filler like a Boucher or something like that. One of those pieces, right? But the prize would be VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr. It appears that these two guys are very likely on their way out from Toronto. Toronto needs to change some stuff up. They haven't had the promise in the season that they had hoped, and pretty much everybody seems to be available. The Knicks are lining up to make a huge offer and package for OG Anunoby. There have been reports that OG has already gotten offered 3 first-round picks. So if he goes, then very likely Toronto's going to sort of just unload everybody, maybe even Pascal Siakam, and then kind of rebuild, retool, and get ready for, trying to restructure their team. Now, when it comes to Fred VanVleet, though, the Lakers have competition, and competition for the Lakers is never good. Now, Fred VanVleet wants to get paid. He wants to get paid nicely, and I do think Fred VanVleet would be a perfect type of point guard next to LeBron James, a guy that can play on the ball, off the ball, good three-point shooter, and just can be a solid contributor. That would also allow Dennis Schroeder to go to the 6-man role, which I think would be really big. That's, in my opinion, what he would be best at. Get a real, true shooting guard that's still very young, 24 years old, 23 years old, that can be a huge piece for the future. And even last season, he was like 3rd in the league in 30-point games in Gary Trent. But Orlando really seems to want Fred VanVleet, and they are willing to pay him based on reports, whatever he's asking for, and really kind of see him as a piece at the starting point guard position for the future. But the Lakers could very well just go get Gary Trent, right? Take Patrick Beverley and maybe a Lonnie Walker and go get Gary Trent Jr., throw in a first or something along those lines. That would be huge. I would be all for that. Now you have Gary Trent, got Rui Hachimura. You'd still be able to do a Russell Westbrook trade if you needed to. Maybe you take Russ and the other first-round pick, maybe a couple seconds, go get Bojan Bogdanovic and, ideally an Alec Burke. And now we're cruising, right? Now we're in a great position. But we've gotten recent reports in regards to the Lakers as well as the Toronto Raptors, what they are looking for as far as a trade goes for Gary Trent Jr. and Fred VanVleet, but primarily Gary Trent Jr. and any potential deals that the Lakers could get in. So jumping right into it, we have this first report from Fisher who says, I have been told that Trent is at least on the Lakers' radar. I don't know if they have actually called Toronto and had active conversations about it, things that are actually moving the needle, but I've been told and believe from credible folks, maybe it's not a lusting desire for Gary Trent, but he at least seems to be someone they're monitoring. But maybe that's also just someone from a certain agency suggesting that. Again, Clutch Sport client, which also Fred VanVleet is as well. Maybe that's all it is, but we shall see. Also worth noting is that Gary Trent Jr. Almost was traded to the Lakers prior. I believe it was last season. They worked out a deal to get Gary Trent, and then it fell through. It was going to be a 3-team deal. So the Lakers and the Raptors have had mutual beneficial trades and discussions in the past. So it's not out of the realm of possibility to think that the Lakers may be able to get Gary Trent now, but it was also added that the Lakers' 2027 first-round pick would be the driving force in the deal. With the players, they're just matching salaries. Irving wrote, Beverly and Toscano Anderson are both on expiring contracts, and Toronto could do what it pleases with each of them at the end of the season. So Toronto is basically, and the reason this is talked about is Toronto is basically looking for matching salaries just to unload, and that's where the Lakers have the advantage. Right? So the Lakers have the picks. Yes, they're later on down the line, but Toronto doesn't want to take on long-term salaries. And there are a lot of teams that, yes, they want Gary Trent Jr., but they don't have the expiring contracts that the Lakers have to match salaries to do a swap. Toronto doesn't want to take on, like a Kyle Lowry or something like that, where they have to pay him for the next several years. They want to basically, hey, we're probably losing Gary Trent Jr., let's unload him. let's get some assets for him, let's get some pieces, and let's get some expiring contracts. That way we have some flexibility going forward. So that way maybe they could get some new pieces, or they could pay some guys, or do whatever, right? It's also added that the Raptors could be open for business with the NBA trade deadline approaching February 9th. Shams from The Athletic reports on January 30th that Toronto would make a decision soon on how they want to proceed with the rest of the season. So this was a Shams report from The Athletic, and it basically dove into that after January 30th is when Toronto is really going to start evaluating and making decisions, which now we are after that date, and we're starting to hear ramped up reports, right? The Knicks are huge favorites to land OG Anunoby right now. You're hearing reports about Pascal Siakam, and these all have came in the last day or so, which makes a lot of sense. And then it's added per Shams. Because of the Raptors' disappointing season thus far, they are currently 23-28 and in 12th place in the East. Rival teams have been informed that the franchise will make a decision about being a buyer or a seller, or standing pat near deadline day, according to lead sources who, like all other sources in this story, were granted anonymity so that they would be able to speak freely. The Raptors are currently 2-1 on their 6-game road trip. That concludes on February 5th. So Toronto, also worth noting, Toronto doesn't plan on making any moves until they return from the road trip. So they're going to ride out the road trip. So if a trade gets done with the Toronto Raptors, it's not going to happen until the road trip is over. Once the road trip's done, that's when they'll start making plays. So basically February 5th and 6th is when, very likely, if deals are going to get done, that's when they're going to start getting done. So Toronto is not making any moves during this road trip. So it's just something to keep in mind for those that are like, why aren't the Lakers going and getting Gary Trent right now? Why aren't the Lakers going and getting Fred VanVleet right now? Why isn't this happening? It's because Toronto wants to finish this road trip, come home, and then start, putting the pieces to the puzzle together. That's their plan. That's their goal. So that's something worth noting as well. And then the last little piece of information that actually came out yesterday is what the asking price for Gary Trent might be. So according to Michael Grange of Sportsnet, league sources peg Gary Trent Jr. likely trade value at a protected first-round pick or 2 good second-round picks along with matching salaries. That is huge, because if the Lakers could, one, give up a protected first, that's huge. Do that. Get that done, right? Maybe you could even give up 1 unprotected first for Gary Trent and VanVleet. That would be a home run, right? And we'll get into that in a minute. But so you could either give up a protected first or 2 very good second-round picks. The Lakers still have their 2023 second-round pick. So in the deal for Rui Hachimura, they gave Chicago's 2023. They gave a essential pick swap. Basically, Washington gets to choose the favorable of the two between their pick and the Lakers pick in 2028, and then they gave a 2029 second-round pick. So the Lakers still have this year's pick, so they could give that up. They could give up a couple picks. I mean, look, if you don't have to give up a first for Gary Trent, even if you have to give up 3 or 4 second-round picks, like if you could do a Rui Hachimura deal where you give up 3 second-round picks for Gary Trent Jr., home run. Home run. You just smacked that out of the park. Even a protected first, I would give up. Like if you could get like top 5, top 10 protected for Gary Trent Jr., again, to me, that might not be a home run, but it might be an in-the-park home run, right? Rather than like a grand slam, it'd be in a park home run. But Trent has started 35 of his 45 appearances this year and is averaging a career-high 18.6 points per game while shooting 36.7% from beyond the arc. His contract has an $18.8 million player option for 2023-2024 season, which he is, based on reports, planning on opting out because he wants to get paid more. Granger noted that the Raptors would only deal him by the February 9th trade deadline if it's clear he won't return to the team. So, again, just something worth noting. If Gary Trent says, hey, I want to stay in Toronto, then he's going to stay in Toronto. But if he wants to leave, they're going to trade him. Now, the reason I think if you could get him for without having to give up a first, that would be amazing. If you could do a Rui deal, where you give up, like, say, 3 seconds for Gary Trent Jr. I would even give up 4 seconds for Gary Trent Jr. Talk about a 23, 24-year-old that, is shooting 38% from 3, can be your starting shooting guard, can play defense, can be a piece not only now but for the future, right? Him and Rui Hachimura, you have Max Christie still. Now you're starting to put pieces together for your future. He's a guy that can score on all three levels. He would bring so much value to this Lakers team. So much value to this Lakers team. So if you could get him without having to give up a first, absolute home run. Now, if you could, for whatever reason, get Fred VanVleet and Gary Trent Jr., if you could get both of those guys for one unprotected first and, like, say, 2 second-round picks, again, huge, huge. Because now you could go and you could take, say, Lonnie Walker and Patrick Beverley and then a first and go get Bojan Bogdanovic or go get Alec Burke or whatever. Or, like I said, even if you just trade for Gary Trent, if you could trade for Gary Trent without having to give up all your firsts, right? Like, so let's say you do Patrick Beverley, Lonnie Walker, and you do, let's say 4 second-round picks. Let's call it 4, right? You give up basically all your tradable second-round picks, and you get Gary Trent Jr., you still have Russell Westbrook and both your firsts. That is huge. That means now you could still go do the Hornets deal or go do the Spurs deal or go do whatever. And now you just turned your team into like one of the best and deepest teams in the league. Like, and you'd have this team for the next several seasons. Not just this season. You'd have this team for the next 3-4 plus seasons. And then even after LeBron leaves, you'd probably still have a good enough team to compete. You also got a bunch of tradable assets, a bunch of tradable players and stuff. Like, I just think that would be an absolute home run, right? Like, it's huge. And now you're in a position to where not only are you contending now, you're contending for the future, but you got these young pieces that the Lakers really need in a Gary Trent, in a Rui Hachimura, in a Max Christie, right? Austin Reeves. That is just beautiful. And now, once LeBron leaves, and let's say you don't keep 80. Let's say you trade 80. Maybe you could go get another young piece or two. And now you have a Gary Trent Jr., you have a Max Christie, you have an Austin Reeves, you have a Rui Hachimura. And now maybe you're just looking to get that other star or two to come in, and now you're contending again. Or maybe Gary Trent turns into that guy. Maybe he becomes a top 3 to 5 shooting guard in the league. Now you have your star shooting guard, and maybe Rui becomes a 20 and 10 guy. And, now you got your 2 pieces, and now you're just trying to instead of maybe going and getting 2 superstars, maybe you go get that 3rd star and then get a bunch of really solid role players, right? Like, that is something that you could do as well, especially Rui. Rui's probably not going to cost a ton. You're probably not going to have to pay him a fortune. So let's say you could pay Rui, let's say $12 million a year for 4 years. Let's say 4 years, $48 million. Or even like 4 years, like let's say $50 million, whatever, right? Now, if you're the Lakers, you can re-sign Gary Trent to, probably giving him $22 to $25 million a year. But let's say it's $22 million. When LeBron and AD and everybody falls off, you'd basically, and the salary cap goes up that the year I believe that they leave, you'd have like Gary Trent, you'd have Rui Hachimura, you'd have Max Christie, Austin Reeves, and you'd have probably $80 million in salary. Like, you could go sign a star or two, or, or like I said, what if Rui does become the guy, or Max Christie? Let's say Max Christie becomes this stud. Well, then good. Now you have him. If you have to, you could always move Gary Trent. Gary Trent's young enough and talented enough. He's going to have value for the future. So, I mean, this is the best case scenario for the Lakers. If his value really is a protected first or a couple seconds, it's a home run. Your one advantage, like I said, your advantage is you have expiring contracts, which Toronto wants. You have 4 second-round picks still that you could trade, which Toronto wants. And on top of that, you have 2 firsts that you could trade that is protected if you had to, which Toronto wants. So if you could figure it out to where you could get these guys, you also have him, Rich Paul as a clutch, and him as a clutch client, which is an advantage, right? Because all Gary Trent has to say is, no, I really want to go to the Lakers. I really want to be a Laker. Well, then there it goes. There goes the conversation. Now the Lakers have the leverage, right? I just think if you have to give up an unprotected first, a protected first, you do it. If you could do top 10 protected, do it, right? Because then you still do it. Even if you could just do top 5 protected, I wouldn't mind them giving it up an unprotected first for Gary Trent. If I'm being honest, I really wouldn't. I wouldn't mind them at all giving up because he's young enough and talented enough and proven enough already to where your hope is, assuming you're not, getting the first pick in the draft, you're getting a guy that you hope you get in the draft. Difference is that Gary Trent, you could have for the next 10 years, and he's still in his prime. Like, that's what you want. You want pieces like this. You want a Gary Trent, a Rui Hachimura, right, for your assets. That's what you're hoping for, a young, quality talent that is already proven that could come in and really move the needle for the Lakers. That's Gary Trent through and through. So this is exciting news. I'm really looking forward to this, and hopefully this means that the Lakers get this done. But again, as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments section below. What do you think? Do you think, yes, go get Gary Trent? What would you prefer to give up seconds? Do you think don't play games, just give up a first? However you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. Let me know down in the comment section below.